Welcome to God Friday Discussions. As we embark on this journey together, it's important to acknowledge the diversity of thoughts, beliefs, and experiences that each of us brings to the table. Our discussions are rooted in a spirit of exploration, learning, and mutual respect. The views expressed are those of the individual participant and are presented for the purposes of open dialogue and personal reflection. Please note, we recognize and honor the freedom of personal belief. This platform does not advocate for any singular viewpoint as the absolute authority on spiritual matters. Our discussions are intended as a safe space for sharing and growth. We encourage you to approach each session with an open heart and mind, but also respect your personal boundaries. If at any point you find the content not to your liking or comfort, you are free to disengage as you see fit. While we seek to provide enriching content, participation is entirely voluntary. We assume no responsibility for any personal decisions or interpretations made in response to our discussions. Our aim is to foster a community where curiosity, faith, and understanding can flourish. Thank you for joining us on this journey. And would you guys mind if I opened up with a little prayer?
Go for it.
Okay. Thou kind Lord, O thou kind Lord, these are thy servants who have gathered in this meeting, have turned unto thy kingdom, and are in need of thy bestowal and blessing. O thou God, manifest and make evident the signs of thy oneness which have been deposited in all the realities of life. Reveal and unfold the virtues which thou hast made latent and concealed in these human realities. O God, we are as plants, and thy bounty is as the rain. Refresh and cause these plants to grow through thy bestowal. We are thy servants. Free us from the fetters of material existence. We are ignorant, make us wise. We are dead, make us alive. We are material, endow us with spirit. We are deprived, make us the intimates of thy mysteries. We are needy, enrich and bless us from thy bounty, from thy boundless treasury. O God, resuscitate us, give us sight, give us hearing, familiarize us with the mysteries of life, so that the secrets of thy kingdom may be revealed to us in this world of existence, and we may confess thy oneness. Every bestowal emanates from thee, every benediction is thine. Thou art mighty, thou art powerful, thou art the giver, and thou art the ever bounteous. Abdul Baha. And I think to get started, maybe Yassine, I don't know if you would appreciate maybe a definition of discipline. I looked up the
Yes, I would. I would appreciate that.
yeah, so I looked up the definition and the etymology as well. So the etymology I thought was kind of interesting. Um, the word discipline is from the Latin word disciplina, meaning instruction and training. It's derived from the root word discere, to learn. Also, uh, disciple, this also matches the etymology of disciple as well. Discere, which is to learn. That's the root kind of word. And the definition of discipline is as a noun, one, the practice of training people to obey rules or a code of behavior, using punishment to correct disobedience. Two, a branch of knowledge, typically one studied in higher education. And then the verb, train someone to obey the rules or a code of behavior, using punishment to correct disobedience. So, yeah, how do you guys feel about that definition?
Very comprehensive, yeah. Yeah, so we're obviously using discipline more as a verb, and not as a specialized field of study. We're not using discipline in that way, right? So, yeah.
Yeah,
I
but
mean, we could.
I think it's cool the relationship between the two, which is kind of you have to be disciplined to study a discipline kind of thing.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So
So
I
what's the
guess,
relationship between? Yeah,
yeah,
go
what's
for
the
it.
relationship between?
Between discipline and religion or God. I think we should look at it from that angle. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I would say, like, say for Christianity, it's kind of accepting Christ as the the master, and um following his way. And so like the disciples of Jesus, I guess you could say, were also disciplined in following Jesus. And then maybe, there's kind of, yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Um, I think the discipline was doing God's will versus doing your own. Um, it's resisting what it is you really want to do to be obedient to God, right? You look at all the disciples; they all had different characteristics, right? And everybody always likes to look at like Peter as a hothead.
Mm,
Like Peter was a guy that's just ready to jump off and fight at any given moment, like with a sword, not like just throw a punch. He was ready to, kill on command. And when Jesus was being delivered for the act of the crucifixion, Peter just pulls out his sword and just starts cut a man's ear off, allegedly, in the story, right? And what we believe in the story. And Jesus stopped him and said, "No, no, like, don't do that." So yeah, that's what I'd say. It's doing what God commands versus what you want.
nice.
Mhm. So, but there's also an aspect of um, discipline relating to really not wanting to do something and then doing it anyway. I think that would more characterize discipline than simply, you know, doing something you really want to do, you're eager to do it, so then it doesn't require discipline really, right? It's actually the times you don't want to do it, and then
Wow.
there's an element of having to force yourself to do it, right?
You always do this, man. I always give me a whole different dimension. That's great, man. That's actually yeah.
Yeah, man,
It's
So,
like at the
that's what
beginning.
these
It's like the
discussions
beginning.
are all
It's
about.
always at the beginning too. It's always right at the beginning too. I just like boom.
so I mean, I think we can look at like what are some ways that we are able to force ourselves to do something we know we ought to do or we have to do, yet we are, we have some resistance within us, either because we're lazy or because it's just feels challenging, you know, um, or there's something else you'd rather be doing, you know. So how do you get yourself to that point? Is it any
It's muscle memory.
muscle memory, just habit, right?
Yeah, it's. I think. I think for me, I think something there has to be like a consequence of something. Let's just say, for example, for myself, like I was really irresponsible, like with my wallet as a kid, and eventually I lost my wallet when I was in the Navy, and I went a week where I lived out of my car and drank protein shakes because I couldn't get access to my debit card. Back then, it took a week to get your debit card. Um, so yeah, I lived out of my car and drank protein shakes for a week, and as a result, uh, every day when I get home, I take my wallet out, put it on the ledge, I hang my keys up as a habit now, So it actually took a consequence of me being undisciplined, become disciplined in that aspect.
can we create can we sort of train ourselves to create artificial consequences? What do you guys think about that? Is that like a good idea?
Elaborate more.
I mean, like, let's say the misplacing your keys, okay, or your wallet. So let's say now I misplaced my keys, and I was gonna go and hang out with my friends, but I misplaced my keys, and then I find my keys, and I tell myself, you know what? Since you have misplaced your keys, you don't get to go hang out today. You think you can be your own disciplinarian in a way, you know?
I don't like that one.
Think
Because
you
I mean, like
can?
you say, like you said, you got a natural consequence, right? Your consequence was natural, right? God gave you your consequence. Let's put it that way, right? What about if you misplaced your wallet, right? And now you have to live out of your car drinking protein shakes. But on day 2, you found your wallet, right? What if you said, you know what? I found my wallet today, so I can just go and buy myself a burger, right? But I am gonna finish this day living on protein shakes, you know, to teach myself a lesson, not to misplace my wallet again. What do you think of that?
So the whole protein shake thing, uh, for me personally, I don't know that it still would have worked. What it really took was by like day 5, I mean, all you had was protein shakes. It sucks. Like your stomach sucks. Like it starts burning. Like when it goes down your throat. And like I was even so proud back then. I wouldn't even take help from anybody. So
Mm.
I kind of did allow myself to like just sit there in that situation and like fester in the consequences of it. There was this girl I was actually dating during the time that actually brought me some like tacos and stuff, man, on like day 6, I remember. And I was, I don't need nothing. I don't need no food. Leave me alone. And then she opened it up, man, and it the smell. Yeah, yeah, I ate them. So, when I do like um deal with the consequence, I kind of like make myself deal with it too. Not like, I take accountability of it where I put myself in this position, so I need to get myself out. I don't know if it's so toxic to a point, if it's toxic that I won't accept help when I do that to myself, or is that me uh, strengthening like the art of discipline? I don't know. What do you think?
I think self accountability or trying to hold yourself accountable is a good way to build character because that's how you improve, right, as a person. As if you're gonna sort of cop out or sort of uh, not sort of see it as just one of those things that, oh, well, it happens, you know. Some people are like that, right? They'll be like, oh, well, you know, it's nobody's fault. It's just one of those things. It happens, right?
Have you been
That
talking to my wife?
that doesn't that doesn't help anybody, right? I mean, that you don't learn nothing like that. So I think it's a good trait to, and especially with discipline, to be more disciplined in your life. You gotta accept accountable. You gotta accept the outcomes of your lack of discipline. Otherwise, you're not. It's not gonna phase you, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of one way of looking at it. Yeah.
I think there is a balance factor though, and maybe I should ask one of the questions is is there such a thing as too much discipline?
Well, I guess what are we referring to? Which definition are we referring to discipline? I would say there's certain circumstances if we're talking about like the one definition that you said of punishment for disobedience. There are probably certain circumstances where there is too much discipline in that, where maybe punishment may be counterproductive. Maybe what that person needs is like empathy and compassion.
Thoughts on self-flagellation, where you whip yourself? It was a
Okay.
religious thing religious people would do.
Yes, I mean, I watched the
Would
one.
that be
Was
like
it
too much
uh,
discipline, you think?
a sect called the Opus Dei or something like that, in
Mm,
Christianity, where they used to practice, self-flagellation, and they used to wear like amulets like an amulet that has like spikes in and things like that, to you know. So there was that within, I think, the Muslims, the Shia sect, the Shiites, you know, on once a year they do like a ritual where they mourn the loss of the prophet's grandson, and some of them also do that, like they hit themselves, you
mm.
know. So the psychology behind that is interesting, you know. I mean, is it really an act of discipline, or is it an act of atonement? You know. So
Divine atonement for me,
it's
that's like a retribution of sins or
yes, atonement is like, you know what, I have sinned, or we have sinned, or there's a collective memory of sinning, and then people uh, hit themselves to sort of feel better for what has transpired. Like in the
isn't
case
that
of the
sort of
the
discipline in
Shia,
terms of delivering a punishment or no?
well, it becomes I don't know, man. It's weird. It almost creates a kind of mass psychosis, you know?
What about
Mm.
like sacrifice? Is it close to like sacrifice?
Like, you mean sacrifice of animals, for example?
That's a form of it, right? Maybe like in Christianity or Judaism, right? I think they still do believe in the blood sacrifice. Like Christianity, we believe that Jesus atoned for all of our sins, so there's no more need for blood sacrifice, right?
Mhm.
So it almost seems like when we're talking about atonement, it's like there has to be like some sort of, I don't want to say like a violent act, but like some type of sacrifice. Maybe the sacrifice is like you're sacrificing not feeling. I don't know, like feeling pain. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't
Hmm.
know a good definition to describe it.
Mhm, mhm.
It seems like
There,
there's a.
there is sort of there's an element to human beings that likes pain, and I mean, people who are, for example, fighters, right? Who fight in the ring. Um, they enjoy fighting, but they don't only. It's not only that they get to beat up the other person. That part of it is also that they feel the realness of somebody's strength pitted against theirs, right? So there's an element to it where they actually, I don't want to, I can't, not exactly in these terms, but it's as if they enjoy getting beat up also. You know what I mean? No. So there's part of human nature that sort of identifies with pain, and I think religion, uh, or aspects of religion, or the way people have expressed religion and interpreted the religion, sort of uh, piggybacked off that sentiment. You know what I mean?
Mm. Hmm. Yeah.
So atonement does have that so blood sacrifice, atonement, um, has that sort of element to it. That look, I gotta feel some pain for the pain that someone else felt. So I gotta sort of self-inflicted on myself. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um,
I just looked up the definition of. I just looked up the definition on Google.
mhm,
Um, reparation for a wrong or injury.
mhm,
I think that's a pretty good way of describing. I think what we're trying to describe.
Hmm.
mhm, mhm. And then there's the issue of self-infliction, which I think comes also in line with the issue is, can you be the disciplinarian of yourself? It's a kind of a way of self-infliction in a sense. I mean, you may not physically beat yourself up, but you are depriving yourself willingly to teach yourself a lesson, kind of thing. Know what I mean?
Can you go overboard with that too?
I imagine you could. I imagine you could. I mean, but would you see usefulness in doing that sort of thing to begin with?
I do.
What do you think?
Yeah. Yes.
Mhm.
You know what it seems to me? It seems to me like discipline is more of like maybe I should think of it as more of a skill. So it's like um it's not like a more extreme discipline, but it's just like higher skilled discipline. And like when it comes to
Oh,
self-discipline, if you're not highly skilled at or at discipline, you're not going to be able to self-discipline very well. But if you're highly skilled at discipline, you're going to be able to self-discipline um well.
You know, it's funny that you said it was an art, right? Because martial art
Mm,
is all about discipline, right?
mm-hmm.
The whole one of the main premises of almost every martial art, the main premise is discipline, right? Um, so yeah, discipline essentially is an art.
mhm. I mean, the other day talk about discipline. I woke my son up, at 5 a.m. Uh, and I said, right, we're gonna go to the field, and he was limping because he woke up and his foot was injured, you know, and I didn't um, allow him to out of it. So he had to limp all the way there, do his training on one foot, and limp all the way back, you know. And then when he got home, I iced his foot. But I told him that, look, if you set your mind to something that we already decided that this is what we were gonna do, right? So we're gonna do it come hell or high water, right? If you have to hop there on one leg, you're gonna hop there on one leg, but this is the decision we made. This is what you want to do, you know? And because I'm trying to teach him to have tenacity, be disciplined to um because the world, I mean, I guess we do this with our kids because we know the world is very harsh a lot of the time, and people don't actually give a shit what's happening in their life when they have made demands or they have certain expectations of you. They don't care what's happening in your life, right? So, so sometimes you gotta, be able to push through anyway, you know. So that's sort of one way of looking at it. Um, but the point is that okay, so I'm the dad, so I'm pushing him, right? But with self-discipline, you gotta be your own dad, right? So you gotta push yourself through to the end, to the finish line, to your goal, regardless of the the hurdles or the struggles that's standing in your way, you know. I guess part of that is also determination, right? The goal that you have that you want to achieve has to mean that much to you. I think that also helps you, discipline. Yeah.
I'm uh I'm kind of extreme sometimes in those circumstances.
Yeah.
I went on a bike ride. Well, it was last year when I went on this bike ride, bicycle, and got like trails by my house. I met a buddy of mine. My buddy, he's like 60. He's probably like 63 now, and he's retired and he just works out all the time, you know. So I said, hey, let's meet up. Let's go on a bike ride. He says, okay. And it's the hottest day of the year. It was 114 degrees outside, right? Which is probably normal for you, but not normal here, man. We don't like that shit. Um, so I decided, hey, I'm going out on my bike. Tell my wife I'm going on the bike ride. Okay. I decided to go out an hour and a half early and ride my bike for an hour and a half before I even meet with him. So I meet up at his house finally, and he starts taking me on the trails, and these trails are hilly. And we got to a point that I think it was pretty dangerous, man. Where I was definitely heat stress. But I got to the point where I was like lightheaded, right? And I told myself like, we got all the way like right by the beach by my house, and I was thinking about calling my wife to pick me up because I was that bad.
Mhm.
Like I was about to pass out, and I told myself, no, that's some bitch ass shit, and I kept going.
And you passed out, or you
And I
made
made
it?
it
Yeah.
home. I
Oh,
made it
okay.
home.
All right. All right. I wasn't expecting that, but hey, you made it. Congrats.
No, actually, that happens to me often. I've learned the art of mastering holding on to that last thread. You
Yeah.
get that point when you're running or training, where almost like you will lose consciousness, but you're hanging in there. So eventually you master the art of being able to just hold on, you know, to that last thing that you have inside of you. So
By the way, the untrained people watching this, it's probably not a good idea. Like you'll die. You'll have a heat stroke. Don't listen to us. We're insane. We're not right.
yeah, and you know what I used to do when I first moved to Riyadh, right? In Saudi Arabia. I used to go and run like in the afternoon, like when it's like 45 degrees Celsius outside, the sun is at its hottest. I used to just because I just wanted to feel the pressure, I wanted to feel the difficulty of that experience. So I used to push myself and I used to go run in the middle of the day, and people used to like stop to like give me a lift because they were like, "What is this guy like nuts?" But I used to do it, because I just wanted to feel there's a part of you that just wants to feel that. You know what I mean? What does it feel like?
Hmm.
So yeah, yeah,
You are a runner, right? I
yeah.
thought I seen that picture of you running. Yeah, yeah. So you're runners. They get that. They actually get high when they run, right? The dopamine. You're
Hmm.
actually. It's like they're addicted to running. So, which is probably a healthy addiction, right?
Hmm.
But so you actually get high while you're running.
Yes, you do. You do.
Yeah.
And running
I
is
don't
a
know.
very good psychological tool also, because when you run long distance, you get to think about a lot of shit.
Yeah.
You know, you solve all your problems while you're running, man.
Oh man.
And I
I
think
always tell people. I always tell people.
what do you tell
I
people?
always tell people when I'm by my when I'm by myself. Like I need somebody around me when I'm by myself because when I'm by myself, there's too many people talking at once.
And I think that's also part of
Yeah.
the training with running is when you do have all the stuff going on in your head, you're physically putting one foot in front of the other. So it's just like it's good grounding
Yeah.
for that sort of mentality.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. You definitely need stay. Idle minds aren't good, man.
Hmm. Yeah, running is like a meditation.
I guess it is kind of like an art when you think about it, right? There's a
Hmm.
science to running. Like I never thought like how much went into it. Um, there's a I have a coworker that's a really big runner, and they were explaining about um, the shoes you have to get. Like you got to get fitted for your shoes, and
Hmm. Hmm.
like when you put your shoes on, they look at like how your knees are positioned, so they'll get like the soles and everything
Hmm.
fitted into them, and like your shoes are only good for like what they say like remember what it is like 50 miles or something. I don't remember how many miles it is or 500 miles, whatever it is.
Hmm.
And a good pair of running shoes will cost you around what $200 plus easy, $250.
Yeah, yeah, they're very expensive. Yeah, running is actually like you think it's a cheap sport, right? Because I mean, what do you need, right? You just need your legs and you go run. But when you get into it, it's actually not that cheap.
And you know what the bullshit of running is you gotta pay to join a marathon, man. I'm like, what the hell kind of shit is that?
Yeah.
You think I wanna run a marathon? Let alone I gotta pay you to do it, you know?
Hey, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was funny too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I started running here actually. because I used to fight in South Africa. But when I got here, there was no fighting. I mean, So then I was like, I got to do something, you know. And I was stationed out sometimes in very remote areas. But there's like no gym and there's nothing. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna run, go outside and run, and that's how I got into that. Yeah.
Yep.
So that sounds like a good example of how discipline kind of creates freedom. And so I was just kind
Mhm.
of, that's my question is, how does discipline create freedom in your life? So, I mean, having the discipline to exercise kind of gives you that um, freedom to run around, and then also freedom with your body later when you're done running and your body stays healthy rather than gets all decrepit and stuff.
Mhm. Well, and discipline also helps you. I mean, from a mental aspect, right? It helps you become more educated overall
Mm,
because you have the discipline to stick something out, to see something through. A lot of people don't have that discipline to see something through. Like if you start a course, you maybe uh, stop halfway. You're like, nah, it's boring. But it's not boring. It's just that you don't have the discipline to see it through. You know what I mean?
mm,
And
mm,
or you, I don't know, you start reading a book, and you leave it off halfway, so you don't actually get the full benefit of what the author's trying to teach you.
totally,
You know what
yeah.
I mean?
That's a good example.
So discipline is also, I mean, you can tell really when you talk to people. Like I deal with a lot of people. You can tell when somebody is on his game and somebody totally isn't. You can
Mm,
immediately tell. You know,
mm-hmm,
just by their whole approach to everything. You know,
mm,
a disciplined approach. I mean, I see it all the time. Like, let's say, for example, you're in a group, and there's tasks that you need to accomplish, right? And you always get that one guy would be like, okay, right. There's so many tasks. There's so many of us, right? Let's divide it into, you know, each one will get so many tasks, right? By what time or what date we're gonna do the first one, blah 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 blah. Right? That's the discipline guy. You understand? he's like on it.
mm-hmm.
So because he's used to seeing things through, so he knows what it takes to see things through. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah, yeah.
So that helps in many. I mean, success is cannot be achieved without discipline in any endeavor, whether it's religious or worldly or spiritual. You know?
Facts.
Yeah.
I think about it from a spiritual level, right? So, discipline, how can it give you freedom? It could free you from the bondage of sin, right? Some people don't even know you're a slave to your sin, so you're missing out on like the absolute pleasure of God, like what He can actually offer you. Like some people have, there's obviously different addictions. There's drugs, there's pornography, there's name it, right? But some people are a slave to whatever that addiction is. That if they were disciplined, they miss out on like the blessing of God.
Mm.
Mhm. Absolutely. I mean, that's a hell of a thing to miss out on just because you don't have discipline.
Well, we sacrifice pleasure for now, maybe because we don't know what's after this, or maybe that there's something greater, or maybe that's all that person knows. But yeah, definitely freedom from the bondage of your sin.
And then the opposite is also true. A lot of people perceive freedom as synonymous with the lack of discipline because there's that kind of freedom too, right? So you'd be like, you know what? So I'm not gonna go work today because I want to be free to, I don't know, go surf. So there's the hippie freedom. You know what I mean?
Mm,
That's totally undisciplined, and you totally undisciplined. Your house is always a mess. You're just a total. you just wake up every day and decide on that day what you want to do for that day, right? Is that's freedom too, right? But that's the freedom that lack of discipline gives you in a way.
Mm.
So how would you? And I just flipped the script on you now, right?
Yeah,
So
no,
how would
I
you?
like that flip scripting. So one way I like to think about it is I like to relate things to music. So it's like when you play music, it's playing when you play like in a song, song's in a certain key. So you could think of the key as like rules and regulations of that song. And when you play in that key, you're playing stuff that sounds pretty good, more or less. And there's actually like levels to it too. There's levels of discipline. So you could be like at a super high level of discipline and then be able to do all this super fancy stuff, or you're just at like maybe the basic level of discipline where you're just staying within the key and your you're playing whatever. But if you don't have discipline and you just play whatever note you want, it's not going to sound good to anyone, even yourself, most of the time. And so that's like one way I like to think of it.
That's the interesting thing. I can relate that actually to Islam in the sense that in Islam you have levels of practice. You have the base level of practice, which is the minimum, and they call that like the compulsory things of Islam,
Mm,
right? Then you have over and above the base level, you have the recommended practices, which you don't have to do. To do it is considered good for you, you know?
yeah.
And then over and above that, you have like the extra, if you want to be extra. Like you just one of those people that you just want to go all in. You know what I mean? So they have that too. So you can be like a Muslim who does like the bare minimum compulsory, and that's fine too. Nobody's gonna fault you for it.
Mm,
You know, like look, I don't want to read, for example, scripture every day. Nothing. There's nothing that says I have to. You understand what I'm saying?
mm,
But I mean, of course, it would be good for me to do it, but there's nothing that says I have to. You
mm-hmm,
know, um, let's just say I'm just one of those people. I want to pray my 5 daily prayers, and that's it. And it takes about 5 minutes to pray, right? So that's only 25 minutes of your day. That's not a big deal, right? But then there's like people that want to pray extra prayers. So there are extra prayers that they can pray, but that's if they want to.
mm,
But those people who don't want to, they'll be like, you know what, screw it. I don't want to, that's too much for me, you know?
mm-hmm,
And then there's those people, for example, that want to fast extra. So they'll fast like on a Monday and Thursday to fast extra. But then the rest of us will be like, nah, I'll skip that, you
mm,
know?
mm-hmm,
Because that's not considered a compulsory part of the religion. But everybody has to, for example, fast in Ramadan, you know,
right,
once a year for a month. Know what I
right,
mean?
right.
So I guess you have like so like the music thing you said, as long as you play within the key, it still sounds good, right? But if you now get advanced in your music, right, there's like more rules to make it sound like spectacular. So I guess like it's kind of the same. It's kind of
Yeah, yeah, I
relating the
like
two
that
of them.
analogy a lot. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
What are your thoughts, Matt? Hello, Matt, are you there?
It's frozen. Oh,
I'm frozen. Are you guys frozen?
no,
No,
it's
no.
working.
Yeah, it's working
Can you
now.
hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I don't know, man. I'm kind of so like in the Christian aspect, right?
Mm,
We were talking about this at one of the men's barbecues we did the other day, and we said there's two types of people that pray, right? And the funny thing is, you can always tell what type of person someone is the way they open up their prayer, right? So you got some people when they're praying, they're ready to give grace for their food. The prayer is direct to the point. Let's eat, right? And it's usually like, "Dear God," and then get to the point. But when somebody starts with "Dearly beloved, our Father God," you know you're about to be there for 15 minutes, and we're all gonna be sitting there like
Food,
ready
the
to eat
food's
the
gonna
food.
get cold in the meantime, right?
Yes. So there's different scripture that states that number one, don't be repetitive when you pray. When you ask God once, that's all you have to do. That's adequate. Uh, he knows what you needed before you even asked him. So sitting there and asking for the same thing over and over, he actually doesn't like that. Uh,
I don't know. I don't know if I agree
like
with that, but
I know
continue.
people that. Well, that's I mean, scripture actually states that, man. Like, don't ask
Yeah.
for the same thing over and over. He knows what you need. Ask for it once, because you needed it, and then consider it done, basically, if it's his will, I guess, right?
Mm.
Um, but as far as like diving, how far you're supposed to dive in, we have these debates all the time amongst Christianity, and some people, what the Bible tells you, you're supposed to like instruct everything you do. You should like do it directed by God. I mean, everything. Like, what are you gonna eat? What are you gonna drink? Uh, every decision you do should be um, directed by God. But do I do that? Probably not. Like, I'm sure God doesn't direct me to drink a Miller Lite, or two, or you know, five of them. You know what I mean? So there's always this debate, like how far are you supposed to be? I guess what's a good way of putting it? Bought in, or that's probably a horrible way of saying it, but that's the only way I know how to describe it. And I guess the conclusion I came to is it's between you and God, you know? So nobody can tell you how far you're supposed to be bought in. Like at the end, God is the judge. He knows where your heart was at. He knows what your intentions were. It was what we talked about a lot in a lot of these podcasts, whatever we call them now. I wanted to say spaces, but yeah. So how much discipline are you supposed to have? I don't think there's a limit on it, but like it's probably a good way that he described the Muslims do it is you got the basic, you got the recommended, and you got the what is it, the compulsory.
Yeah.
Compulsory was the basic, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah. So you got the compulsory, then you got the recommended, then you got the overachievers, right?
Mhm.
So are any of them less? Are any of them less in favor, in God's favor than others? I don't know. I think I don't know. Just whatever your intentions are more important than how much you actually do. You know.
Mhm.
Mm.
Then we also have a point like in Islam where it's too much. Not also allowed to do too much. So there's a famous story where this woman came to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be on him, and she was smelling very strong like perfume. And he said to her, "What's up with you?" Because in the culture, in the Arab culture, in the Islamic culture, women are not supposed to smell like strongly with perfume because it's seen as immodest, like trying to attract men. And now, of course, the Prophet knew that this is a married woman and he knows her husband too. And she came in a way that she wasn't even, let's say she didn't wear, she was covered, but she didn't wear her, like her going outside clothes. It's as if she came in a hurry, let's put it that way, right? And then so the prophet could see she was distressed and he was saying, okay, what's happening with you? She says, my husband uh, fasts during the day and prays all night. That's why I look like this and I smell like this because she's trying to attract him, right? But he wants to pray all night and fast. So she's not having her marital needs met.
Mm.
And then the prophet ran out of his house. They say that it was one of the few times he went out of his house. Uh, like what I think he went out without his sandals on, or something to that effect. I speak under correction, okay? And he went there and he reprimanded this guy, this Muslim, this companion of his, and he said, he said, is there anyone better in this community of Muslims than myself, and me, the Prophet? So the man said, of course not. He said, well, I fast, but I also eat and break my fast. And I pray during the night. I also sleep. So follow my way. So the lesson out of the story was that people should never go to extremes in anything. You know, that every person has their right over you, and God has his right over you. And you should take care of the rights God has over you, but also the rights of people that they have over you.
Mm. So you have like
Understand?
a marital obligation, obviously, right? To
Yes.
fulfill your wife's needs and vice versa.
Yes.
So what the man essentially was doing was making the religion his god rather than worshiping God.
Yes. And so therefore the Muslim scholars have deduced kind of from there, they say that to fulfill your marital obligations is a worship greater than prayer.
Wow.
Yeah. Because it serves the purpose of God through that act, you know. Yeah.
I didn't know the Muslim religion was that. I don't know how we put it, man. He's telling you it's more important to have sex with your wife sometimes than just to than basically to
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good lesson.
That's a good principle.
Yeah, that's a good story. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. So that kind of shows that there is an upper limit, is what I'm saying.
Hmm.
You know, you also not supposed to overdo it. And then the Prophet Muhammad, peace be on him, to emphasize this, he also said that the little you do regularly is better than doing a lot all at once.
Hmm.
So he said that rather just do a little bit of something regularly and have the habit and discipline of it than trying to overdo it. You know?
Wow. That's heavy, man. How important that God looks at. You know how we have this argument that sex is a bad thing? Obviously, in the right circumstance, it's not, right? But we're saying that it's more important to have sex with your wife than to worship God all the time.
Mhm.
Is that like basically what that's saying? Not just sex, but obviously fulfill your wife's needs as well. And if she was wearing perfume, obviously she was trying to attract her husband to fulfill that need. Is what it sounds like, right? It wasn't just
Yeah.
to get his attention. It was he wanted she wanted it, and
Yeah. Mhm. And she was complaining of neglect, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep, yep,
yeah. Yeah, because I think that's the collective aspect in religion is very important, just like serving your fellow community, which includes your wife and kids and stuff. So yeah, neglecting that, I guess that's also like a sin, even if you're neglecting them because you're praying, which is kind of ironic and
Yes,
interesting.
exactly, exactly. So you're not supposed to use the things of religion as a way to neglect the rights of people.
wow,
Understand? So I'm not even allowed to, as a Muslim man, for example, I can't say, you know what, I'm so pious and I read the Quran all day, and because that's what I like doing, and therefore I don't go to work for my family. I'm not allowed to do that. Understand? So I'm supposed to go work for my family, and that is counted as worship. Of course, intentionality is important, right?
Hmm.
But if my intention is to go work for my family to fill an obligation that God has given me because He placed them in my care, right? Then that becomes an act of worship. You know what I'm saying?
wow, wow.
And I'm not allowed to say, oh, you know what? I'm not going to go to work because I'm reading the scripture all day, for example.
Hmm.
There's a there's a
You know?
there's a
Yeah.
verse in the Bible that says a man who doesn't provide for his family is worse than an infidel.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that coincides exactly with what you're saying, basically. Like, I've never looked at it from that aspect. I've always just looked at working as like an obligation, not like a form of worship. But now that you describe it, like it is a form of worship. And I feel sometimes that in our culture here, in Western culture, like with women especially, in Western culture, sometimes sometimes they'll do things to avoid fulfilling their duties, right?
Mhm.
I'm trying not to get too in depth in this without. So basically, you can't say I didn't fulfill my wifely obligations because I was reading the Bible all day.
No, you can't do that. No. Yeah. Basically. Yeah.
It's unacceptable in God's eyes, man.
Mhm.
I would even
Because
think it.
you're using God as the scapegoat now, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm.
Man, that's heavy, man.
Mhm.
Yeah, very insightful. I like it.
Yeah, and so you can see that even to be a Muslim or a Christian, um, you need to have discipline. It's a requirement of religion to have discipline, you know, because you can't be uh, an obedient anything without discipline, you know. Yeah, because it's not always that you're gonna enjoy doing it, you know. I mean, sometimes like I'm sitting, I'm watching a YouTube video, I'm reading a book or whatever, right? The call to prayer goes, and you think to yourself for a minute or whatever, you think to yourself, maybe I'll just pray later, you know, 'cause I'm busy and like I just got into this now, and you know what I mean. Now I got to break away, and I mean, especially in a religion that you got to pray 5 times a day, that these things occur, you know. But then you tell yourself, you know what? What's more important, you know? Look, I'm
Yeah.
gonna break away for 5 or 10 minutes. I mean, I can come back. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So there's that kind of so would you will obviously always be challenged in those kinds of ways, you know.
Definitely, yeah. And so,
Yeah.
why
It's
do you think
a.
people struggle with discipline? Um, and I guess maybe we kind of went over it because the idea of discipline is a struggle, right? It's like you don't want to do this, but you do it anyway. So that is what discipline is. So maybe struggle is
Mhm,
part of the
mhm.
definition of discipline. It's struggling with yourself to do um the right thing or something.
But you ought to do it. Yes, yeah.
Hmm.
But I also think what helps with doing the right thing or doing what you ought to do is wanting it bad enough. I mean, being focused on what your goals are in your life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
I run a marathon once a year, right?
Hmm.
So I can, for example, skip running training, right? But I know that because I'm only running this one marathon once a year, right? It means so much to me. I don't want to struggle through that marathon. No. So whenever I feel like not running, I think to myself, you know how shit it's gonna be to struggle running 42 kilometers,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So then because it's not something you can just go and do, right? I can't wake up one day and just go run 42 kilometers. I'll have a heart attack, right? I gotta build up to it, you know?
Hmm.
And so every year, what I do is I run the marathon. After the marathon, I cycle off of running because I don't want to damage my knees and things like that. Running is a shit sport, to be honest, long distance running, because
Oh yeah.
it's prone to injuries, you know.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
what
It's
I
bad
do
on
is
your
I
knees.
cycle off running, and then and that's why I only run one marathon a year. You know what I mean? But then I got to cycle back onto running, and I do it gradually, and I mix up my training with other things, so that I can still achieve the same cardio results without having to run excessively, because excessive running isn't good for you. And then I still manage to do it and go run the marathon every year. But I mean, I need to have that in mind. I run the marathon every year, not because I'm a marathoner. I run the marathon every year to have a goal that motivates me to always train. That's why I do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
That's
the
good.
marathon,
Just a
registering
way
for
of
the
keeping.
marathon keeps you disciplined.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It's because I have that
Exactly
goal.
right.
So what I'm saying, part of the equation of discipline in life is to have a goal that you feel is worth working towards,
Mm.
whatever that is. And that's going to get you out of bed in the morning, right?
Yeah, I feel like a strong why is really helpful in stuff like that. So like having that goal of running a marathon and then having the why of, oh, because I want a healthy body, or I mean, I'm kind of curious, what is your why? Do you have like a strong why for that marathon?
So it's to make training more exciting and more interesting for myself,
Mm,
because I always train anyway. But if
mm-hmm,
I'm training towards a goal, I'm going to train harder.
mm,
I'm going to push myself to new limits.
yeah,
I'm
totally.
gonna try to run that 10Ks in under 1 hour. I'm gonna try to run the next 10Ks again. I'm gonna try. I'm pushing for a time. And it gives me something to targets to feel proud of, like an accomplishments, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
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 As we're talking about all this, sometimes I'm thinking about myself. Like, I get up all the time early and go to work. I work a lot. And waking up at 3:30 in the morning to go to work every day, like, it sucks. It sucks, man. And it gets harder and harder as I get older.
Mhm.
I'm more and more tired, but I've developed like such a discipline for doing it for so long now that no matter how hard it is, I still get up and do it, right? And then I ask myself sometimes, because I'm probably the opposite of what I was describing earlier. Sometimes I'll feel called or compelled or convicted to lead a group like with men, right? Let's just say a Bible study with men or something. And, well, no, I gotta work. So essentially, like, I'm doing the opposite. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I don't
Like
know if I'm making any sense. Like,
you have a conflict, like you want to do Bible study, but you also have to work too, or I'm a little confused.
no, no. No, it's more along the lines like I'd rather work than do the Bible study. So, like,
So
sometimes I'll be like, no, I'll
so in
even
that
like
case,
pick
the
up
discipline
overtime
would
to.
so in your case, the discipline wouldn't be discipline to work, it would be discipline to Bible study because you already want to work. The thing you don't want to do as much, but you feel like you ought to do is Bible study. So the discipline would be doing
Well,
Bible study over working.
well, I definitely don't want to work either. But if I had to choose, I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna go to work because it's just something that I've done my whole life, and I guess I don't want to say good at it, but you know,
I think it's what you
disciplined at
mentioned
it.
earlier, Matthew mentioned that right in the beginning. Habit. It's because it's a habit. You know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely a habit. Like rain, sunshine, snow, COVID, uh, mono, you name it. I've been to work. Like I never, like I almost never call off of work. The only time I call off of work is like when, like my family's sick or my wife is sick and I gotta watch the kids. Like if I'm sick, I'm still going into work.
there's an interesting relationship between discipline and habits. So it's like discipline is the struggle of doing what you ought to do, and then habit is kind of the making it easier over time of doing what whatever you decide to do. And so the more you're struggling with discipline and doing the things you ought to do, the easier it is going to become to do that. And I mean, it's kind of obvious, but I think it's funny how there's like an opposite uh struggle effect of discipline versus habit.
That's a good way of
You know
putting it.
what helps also, like if you look at it from a practical perspective, like I personally do this from time to time, is I will draw up a weekly schedule, right? Of things like I want to accomplish. Not, I don't schedule my whole day. Like each day I have things that I need to do in that day. Doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
to be like exactly at a certain time, right? Because I tried the exact time thing. It doesn't seem to work. You know,
Mm.
because things come up, people knock on your door, you know, it's like you can't be that rigid, you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then I figured the way that you actually keep to a schedule is to have a day or two that's unscheduled. Meaning you have a day that's just clear, like you do whatever on that day.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is on your week, your schedule, your weekly schedule, you look forward to that day that is unscheduled. Because of your schedule, you're like, oh, I want to do this, I feel like doing that, blah, but I can't do it because it's not in my schedule, right? And it's going
Yeah.
to take up the time that I'm not going to be able to tick off the things I'm supposed to tick off today. So you look forward to that day that's unscheduled, and then you'll find that that unscheduled day is so productive, also,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because now you in a way scheduled your unscheduled day just mentally because you were like, you know what, I want to do this, that, and that, but I'm gonna wait for my unscheduled day, you know,
Have you
and
seen
then
that like
yeah,
is it a video or something where um it's like the teacher, he has this cylinder and he has like big balls, smaller balls, and then like sand. And it's kind of he kind of relates it to how like scheduling your day or how you use your time in your life kind of thing. And so the big balls are like important things in your life, like family and relationships and stuff. And the smaller balls are like maybe smaller responsibilities like fixing your car or scheduling something, appointments. And then the sand is like wasting time, video games, pleasure, whatever. And so if you fill it up with sand, the cylinder with sand first, you don't have space for the big ball and the smaller balls to fit in. But if you do the big balls first and then the medium balls, and then you put sand in, then it kind of you can make it work with that. So I think that's a pretty good analogy for scheduling and like um I guess being disciplined with the bigger balls rather than with the sand and just putting time
mhm.
into those important things. God,
You
God
know,
may be
talking
one of the
about
big
that,
balls
like
too.
what yeah, well, what you just said about what's important, right? It reminds me of like last week's conversation. Was it last week? And the conversation we were having about how 30% of the men in the world die virgins, right? And it's because they prioritize that sand is what you're talking about, Raj. Like
Mm,
they'd rather be playing video games than being a man and going to work and providing for a family, you know. So and then those also the same men that are the haters, man.
yeah, and
uh,
I think like a lot of that is confidence related, but in in a sense it's in the confidence and of lack of faith or not having confidence, not having that strong faith in God, like not feeling worthy of um doing the things you want to do and stuff like that. So I think that's also where God kind of comes in and can help people is um just feeling that sense of worthiness and
Well, it's a,
yeah.
I, I'd say it's a lack of experience because the technology talk we had last week is people never had face-to-face interaction with other people. When we were growing up, if you wanted to go talk to a girl, you actually had to go talk to her and have faced that fear of rejection. And a lot more times you got rejected than you got accepted. So the fact that you've never even experienced rejection and you realize, oh, it's okay, everybody experiences rejection. It's it's that I think it's that lack of human interaction, lack of humanity. I don't know. We got to a point that you don't have to leave your home to interact with human beings. Having face-to-face physical contact with human beings is like extremely important. We found that out during COVID, right? The suicide rate went up, and also, you know, what we found out, it's important to like be away from people too. Like people shouldn't be around each other 24/7. So yeah, that's what I'd equate it to is 100% just lack of experience of life, like real life.
Yeah, that's an
Yeah,
interesting way
because
to
it's
put it.
virtual life, virtual lives. People are
Yeah.
living virtual lives. Yeah.
And like
Yeah,
I think
pretty
an
soon these
interesting
same
pattern
people that
there, an interesting pattern there is how I'd say in more populated areas you have more of this loneliness stuff going on, and in less
crazy.
populated areas you'll have less of that because people will actually form stronger communities when there's not as many people.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, you communities that are small are galvanized by common values usually.
Hmm.
Like in a small little village, there's one church, everybody goes to that church, right? So they're all from the same denomination. They galvanized by a common values, common so many things in common, that it's just easier for them to socially engage. There's less friction,
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in big cities, uh, it's so much harder to navigate relationships with people because they all from different places, from different, you know what I mean, uh, cultures, different. So it's a bit. It requires a level of skill that a lot of people don't feel they have really. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then
What
I
I
think
what
there's
I
also
what
an
I
aspect. Sorry, Matt, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna touch on the whole about the small town thing, right?
Hmm.
In my and I don't have anything that suggests this other than my interaction with people from small towns. It seems to be like small town small towns have like a problem with like suicide as well. Like I think it's important to also get out of your little small town and go experience the world. Uh, don't look at your little community as the end of everything. Because maybe you don't fit in that community, and it's okay to go out and find a new community.
Mhm.
I don't know. I've seen an individual I know from a small town, and he had I think four brothers that committed suicide. I'm like, I don't know. There's something going on in that family, or you know.
Hmm.
Sure. One of the big reasons I think for like depression in small towns, because I've seen it with students of mine, for example, right, is also social media. They see
Mm,
through social media an entire world out there, and obviously it's glamorized because people put their best on social media, and most of it is fake anyway. That's not really who they are. They're really not that happy. They're not. You understand? And then people look at that. So this the world online is so much richer than the real world, right? So I'm looking at all these amazing things online, and then I look at outside my window, and all I see is sand in the desert, right? So you know what I mean? So I mean, so so
That is
so
a
the
funny
contrast is
that was a
so
funny image in my mind.
yeah,
Yeah.
the contrast is so big. Sometimes we used to play a game. like my colleagues at work, someone would stand over by the window, and outside the window there really is only sand, right? We live in a desert, right? And he'd be like, on the left I see these big palm trees, and there's rivers running through. Oh, and there's a zebra, so my colleagues would like now and again just play this game of what in their imagination, what they're seeing, just because it can get so depressing
Mm,
to look around and see nothing all the time. You understand?
hmm.
And that's obviously compounded tenfold when you have a rich online life, but then your real life is really, you know. Whereas in the past, when people were just living in the desert and that's all they knew, they wouldn't care. It wouldn't depress them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that is a good point. Like, that's actually a very good point. Maybe because maybe we're overexposed to things that we have this, like, we covet things that we probably shouldn't. I think it's okay to desire to travel uh, and do things, but like when you're looking at, like you said, what's going on online and people are showing their best, that's probably what's going on. We're just coveting it, like we're envious of what's really going on.
Hmm. Yeah, so it's hard for us to feel a sense of gratitude for what we have because we don't
Man,
think we have enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel
We
like
think
we solved the world.
we think it
I
all
feel like we
sucks.
solved the world's
Everything
problems.
looks like it sucks around you,
Yep, yep, yep.
Yeah.
You're 100% right. And everybody thinks. I thought this, for example, when I was in high school. I thought uh, California was like the greatest state in the world, right? And then I moved there when I was in the Navy, right? And like it's cool, but it's like really expensive, and like people are really flamboyant over there. And it was like made me feel like I'm not a flamboyant person, so I didn't feel like part of that little crowd.
Where were you?
So isn't the grass is San Diego?
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
And San
So
Diego
yeah,
I feel like San Diego is one of the more down to earth places in California, to be honest with you.
have you
Right,
been?
Sheraj? Yeah,
I
I've been there.
guess,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Feel like there's a strong military presence in San Diego.
But there's also a strong like immigrant community like Mexicos and
Definitely,
Latinos and things, right?
definitely, yeah.
So
yeah. Now that you say that, yeah, there was like a strong community amongst that. Like you never felt like out of place in those instances. It's more like when I went downtown, like San Diego or like Fashion Valley, Mission Valley, the places that were like really uppity, and like everybody has these designer. If you don't have something designer, you already feel like you're out of place. You couldn't wear this America shirt I got on Amazon and fit uh, in those communities over there.
Hmm.
Oh, that's that's a that must be poor. And it was almost like a sense of entitlement there, like they deserve this, they earned this. So I didn't like the spirit there either.
mhm.
Well, as an like in Northern California, we always rag on the Southern Californias as being more superficial and stuff like that. So no worries.
Yeah,
Come to
no.
NorCal next time.
I've been I've been to the Bay Area. I was in San Francisco. I almost took a job in Stockton. I didn't though. But yeah, there's definitely a different. Well, San Francisco was kind of uppity too, if I remember correctly. But I guess that's even changed now. Like how, which is another conversation. But yeah,
Yeah, San Francisco has
we
a
we, we kind of just
lot
covet.
going on there.
Yeah, I guess we kind of just covet things that we shouldn't covet because we're viewing other people. We're viewing our lives through other people's lens.
Yeah, I feel like the Bay Area is amazing outside of the city, San Francisco itself,
Mm.
because even back when I was there, I mean, how that was what, how many years ago was that? More than 20 years ago. But
Yeah.
even
Mhm.
then, there was like a bunch of homeless people walking around, But now I believe when I speak to people, it's gotten so much worse,
Mhm.
San
Yeah.
Francisco, yeah. Mhm.
But it is a really cool, like there's the thing I always liked about San Francisco is that there's many worlds in San Francisco. It's like it's kind of trippy. It's like one area will be like something and then another area will have a completely different vibe and it's very dense area. Like a city. Like any
Mhm.
city, I guess.
Yeah, it's a city. Yeah, it's a city. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a big city. Yeah.
Yeah, as the older I get, I think we had this conversation. The older I get, though, man, I become, I'd say, more conservative in my values, and I value more like intimate, smaller things, like than what I used to value. I used to like, oh, let's go to Chicago, you know, and now I hate going there now. Like I really hate it. I'd rather be in my backyard in my small community. I don't know. I don't know if that's a sign of maturation or a sign of bitterness or a
No,
combination
I'm
of
the
both.
same. I'm the same. I hate big cities. I'm exactly the same. And
Yeah.
I try to ask myself what is it about the big cities that I hate? And I came to the conclusion that it is anonymity. The fact that you can go around and nobody knows who you are and nobody knows who anyone is. And I think that's what I don't like about it. And also because of that, I think in big cities, people tend to be more sinful because you can be. There isn't that collective consciousness of community and preservation of a community, and you know, because like it's more the whole mentality in a city is that anything goes. So that's kind of I feel. I mean, I just don't like it, but instinctively I don't like it. But I ask myself like, what is it about big city? And I kind of think that that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, I hate being
So
around people now. I think a lot of people.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's just a lack of or experience. If it's experience or a lack of trust, I don't know. But like when there was one time me and my daughter were going. My oldest, we were going downtown to a place in Chicago. It's called Navy Pier. And the element in downtown has like shifted. We used to go as like kids, like Chicago was one of the most beautiful cities you would ever go to, like hands down. I think to date, the second nicest city I've ever been to in the United States, next to San Diego. And San Diego is like really, really nice too. But like the element started shifting. So we were coming back, leaving Navy Pier, and there was I'm walking. It's just what I always do. I observe, and I could see this guy in the crowd. He just didn't fit in. Like there was something going on there. So I'm watching him. And I could see there's something going on. And then as he walks past us, I turn around, I look at him, and he's turning around, and he's looking at like my back pocket. Like, no, 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 yeah, don't do that. I ain't going today, bro. So that element didn't previously exist in downtown Chicago, but now it's become a problem. Like robbery, people getting sexually assaulted, things of that nature are not that
Yeah,
uncommon anymore.
that's true. I think in every country that I've experienced, the cities are always a lot more dangerous than the other areas. It's always and again, because people don't know each other, right? You Even the criminal, I'll give you an example, right? You find people that are like jailbirds, right? They're in and out of jail, but they live in a little community. Like I've experienced this in South Africa, right? They never do anything in the community they live. They don't do crime in the community they live because the auntie that lives next door, they know her for 20 years. He's seen those kids grow up in front of him. Know what I mean? When there's that sense of connection, people are reluctant to, do things. But when there's you in the big city and you just don't have that.
and then never mind
I
the
would,
internet where there's
Also, a
I
even
lot,
would,
more people
also
and
a lot
more
more.
anonymity.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I wouldn't say like in those communities because some of those neighborhoods in Chicago, the community is like really tight knit. I just want to say there's almost like a spirit of negativity that just lingers in these communities. It's a negative. It's just an evil spirit, and you come across people that grow up on a block their whole lives and they never leave this block. Like literally, this goes on in Chicago. Like we were talking a one block where they don't leave because they can't, because you cross over the block, you're in the rival factions area, right? So, but these same people that grow up in these tight knit communities be the same people that'll kill their grandmother or rob their grandmother or rob their mother or sell drugs to their mother or shoot their brother. Or it's something I can't get down with. I don't understand it, and I don't even want to begin to understand it. So kind of like avoid those areas as a result, I think.
So I just want to
Yeah, it's
reel in
best
the
to avoid those there.
yeah, reel in the conversation back to discipline. How would you guys say your discipline, your self-discipline or discipline has evolved over time since you were um a kid, I guess? I'd say for me, like, I definitely am not as or I don't act on impulses as much. And I think um I'm able to, when I do commit to something, I think I actually I don't know. I was pretty disciplined as a kid too. But I think I have more self-discipline now because I think a lot of the when I was a kid, I relied on like maybe teachers or other people to provide some of my discipline. But now that I'm an adult, I have to pretty much uh it's either natural consequences or myself that kind of discipline me. So yeah. How about you guys?
Well, I'll continue. For me, I would say definitely like impulse. I've never had like an issue with discipline for like working like ever. That's never been a problem. That's always, I don't know, something I've probably been born with, maybe. But in my early 20s, I think I had discipline with like uh, I struggled with disciplining myself on, put a lot of pride, I guess, in my appearance, and I would, from like my head to my toe, I had to have like a matching everything. So um, I found myself overdrawing my bank account a lot. Uh, Never had a problem paying my bills. I've always paid my bills though. I've always found that way. But as I got older, I realized like I think you're wearing these clothes to impress people that you don't really care about or care about you, and I've become less, I guess, vain in those situations. So I don't know if that's a part of discipline, but yeah, and things like that, I've matured in, and there's things I'm still working on actively that I really need to mature in.
Yeah. Yeah, with me, basically, as I became an adult, yeah, I got married quite young. And I just think the responsibility has driven me, to be more disciplined. Because when you're single, you kind of, you're not pushed really because you're just kind of fending for yourself. But when you're fending for a family, it's a whole nother level. You don't want to let your family down. Um, and also because you're a support structure as a man for your family, you can't let yourself down because by letting yourself down, you're letting your family down, you know? So you kind of have to be on top of most things, most of the time, because you are being relied on for that. And even when it comes to the discipline of being fit and healthy and strong, um, that's also an important aspect of being able to carry on with the things you need to do. You can't be sick every other day, or you can't, you know what I'm saying? So you gotta look after yourself better. You gotta it all comes together. It's all part of the same thing. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So as a
Yeah.
father, for example, like I've got a lot of kids, right? So as a father, I want to be able to still run around with my kids, play with them. I still want to be able to give my sons their first fight when they're big, in the ring, things like that. So you want to be on top of things, You don't want to be like an old man, that's incapable and useless, Yeah. So that
Yeah.
requires, you know.
Well, for
So
you though, man, you got like 3 times the duty, right? So
Yeah.
like for myself, like I think it's hard enough managing like a one wife and kids. I don't know how you do it, bro. Honestly.
Yeah. So I mean, it does require a lot of discipline. It definitely does. It does require next level discipline, and I can see it in myself because when I engage and interact with people, um, and how random people are, it frustrates me. It irritates me because I'm like, how can you be so random? And then I realize, well, my lifestyle has never been. I've never been in a position to be random. For me, everything is on time and on schedule, and you know, within a plan, and yeah. So.
Raj is still working on that art.
yeah,
Yeah.
discipline's my worst.
Because people like sometimes people call me, people call me and they're like, "Hey, let's do this tomorrow," and I'm like, "Bruh, with me, you got to make an appointment." You know?
Raj hits me with that every once in a while too, though. He'll like, hey, here's my calendar, and he'll try to. I got to book him on a calendar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta start using that again. That was a good tool. I stopped using that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember. Raj tried to get me to book him on calendar a few times. I'm like, Raj, I thought we were past this, man.
My time is limited, Matt.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When I started my business and I learned this trick, right? I was new in the business and I had a video photography business, and people would call me to book me for a wedding or a church event, right? The churches used to pass me around. I do work for one church, like record an event or a festival or whatever, and then they'd pass me around to the next church or whatever, right? And so when I started, I knew that the human psychology is that they like something that's scarce. So whenever anyone called me and said, "Hey, are you free this weekend?" Even though I know in the back of my mind that I'm probably free, right? I'd say, "You know what? Let me check my schedule and I'll get back to you tomorrow." You know, and my schedule will be completely empty, right? But just the mere fact that I said I got to check my schedule, right, got them to book me, you know, because it's now scarce, right? That means, oh, this guy must be so good. He's so in demand, right? But meanwhile, I was just starting out. I mean, I was not in demand at all. So, just a trick, you know? Yeah.
I think I sent Raj a video on marketing
Mhm.
one time, and
Mhm.
maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Raj, you can correct me, but scarcity was one of the things they talked about specifically, and exactly what you did was exactly kind of how they described it. So there's like scarcity, and there's also authority. So like you could another trick you could do, and I'm probably telling too many secrets online, but another trick you can do is like if you have a number, you have a secretary, right? Your wife can answer the phone. You're like, you know what? We're gonna hook you up with our expert on this, and they put you on the phone, and all of a sudden you're looked at as an expert in uh,
Mhm.
whatever area that is, and like, oh, and it's just yeah, you're the expert there, but maybe you're not an expert, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, that's
Little
definitely
hacks.
a trick. Yeah, little marketing hacks for you guys out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, cool, guys. This has been a really cool discussion. What do you think? Should we close it out now with a little prayer, or you want
Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah,
to? Okay.
Read something from your book, Sheraj, yeah?
All
yeah,
right.
you're doing good with
Okay. I adjure thee by thy might, O my God. Let no harm beset me in times of tests, and in moments of heedlessness guide my steps aright through thine inspiration. Thou art God. Potent art thou to do what thou desirest. No one can withstand thy will or thwart thy purpose. The Bob.
I like the prayers that you're reading. They're very nice. Yeah,
I like them too.
very interesting.
I'm a big fan of this prayer book. It's got a nice. It's just uh they're like short but not too short, and it's like got a good diversity, and it's like a small little thing. So
It's such
I
a fun
like it.
little book. Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
And it's
yeah.
not starting with, dearly beloved, where we know we're gonna be here. We know we're gonna be here for another half an hour.
Yeah,
But it
yeah.
definitely has that sort of vibe, like, "Oh divine providence" on this one. "Thou art kind, Lord" on that one. "Oh my God, oh my God. Oh thou
Yeah.
compassionate Lord. Oh thou kind Lord." It's got that going on.
Dang. Yeah, if you start with that in front of my group of men, they'll be like, oh, everybody start rolling their eyes, like, oh
Here we
man,
go.
here we go. We're hungry. We want to eat. All right, guys.
All right, guys, it's been real. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Right.
thank you
Till
guys.
next
Thanks
time.
everyone.
Inshallah.
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 Till next week.